You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hello, everyone. Michael Renfro here. I'm the host of 15 Minutes, Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, where we deliver tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. In order to have a successful marketing campaign and make sure that you're getting the best ROI, your firm, simply put, needs to have the better website and the best content. At Gladiator Law Marketing, we use artificial intelligence along with machine learning and now well over a century and a quarter of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, please go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com. That's gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. With that, let's go ahead and get right into our episode. Today, we have Gina Campanella with us. Gina, why don't you tell us where you're from and, or I should say where you are, not where you're from, but where you are and what practice area you're in.
Thank you so much, Michael. As you said, my name is Gina Campanella, and I have my own firm, Campanella Law Office in Midland Park, New Jersey.
Nice.
And I opened my firm in 2015, and I focused my practice on, three main areas, really. Business law, I do corporate law, but really focusing on small businesses, your mom and pops, your startups, your entrepreneurs. Right. And I do have a specialty in that area on healthcare businesses. And then I also do have a real estate practice, commercial and residential, which kind of grew out of that business practice.
I got you. Have you just a curiosity, have you considered getting your real estate license and taking that further where you sell it and represent it?
I couldn't do both. Ethically,
ethically, you're not. That's like, you know what? I never knew that. I didn't know if you could. You could still be a lawyer and an agent. You just couldn't work on the same project.
Exactly. I couldn't work on the same deals.
Gotcha.
And I don't envy the realtors I work with. They actually do a lot more work than I do, in my opinion. So I'm perfectly content to sit at my desk and do the paperwork.
And just do the legal stuff. I get it. So how did you take me back to the beginning of this firm when I asked this? How did you get started? How did this transpire that you ended up getting your own practice?
This was, I think it was always in the cards for me to have my own practice.
Right.
I grew up in a small business family, and I've always kind of been very business minded.
Entrepreneur.
Very entrepreneurial minded, very business minded. When I was in college and I was kind of deciding, which direction do I want to go in? For me, it was really, I loved the law. I loved the history of it. I love the study of the law, but I also really love business.
Right.
And for me, it was kind of that struggle. Do I want to go to law school? Do I maybe want to get an MBA? I think at that point, I thought there would probably be more opportunities with a law degree. Still not entirely sure if I made the right decision.
But you're here.
And
you seem pretty happy.
Yeah, still not entirely sure if I made the right decision, but I'm happy with where I am, and that's all that matters. I did end up choosing law school, and I did not have a straight path to get where I am. I actually started out, I didn't focus on business law when I was in law school.
Right.
I did not have any lawyers before me in my family, with the exception of my sister, and she was only 3 years ahead of me.
Oh, okay. So both of y'all she's an attorney too.
She's an attorney as well. Okay. Yeah. But we didn't have any, generationally older attorneys to kind of guide us.
Right. No mentors within the family.
Exactly. No mentors within the family. So it's we both kind of bought into this, law school sales pitch of litigation. Right. If you really want to be a lawyer, go to litigation. And it was really not for either of us.
Right.
But that's kind of where you got pushed if you didn't know to push back and go in a different direction. So my first 3 years out, I was actually a divorce lawyer. So after 3 years, I actually thought I was going to quit practicing law. And at that point, I went back and at that point, I actually thought, okay, I did make a mistake. I need to go back. Let me go back and see if I can go back now and get that MBA and go back and chase my passion, which was business.
Right.
I found out
it all worked out essentially the way.
it all worked out in the end. Yeah.
Right.
So I found out I'd have to take post-baccalaureate classes. I would have had to take the GMAT. So I actually found a master's in healthcare administration, an MBA for healthcare, decided to take that instead. And when I got my MHA, then I was finally able to break into transactional business corporate work in the healthcare field. And once I was able to break into that field, I was in a mid-size boutique firm for about 4 years. Absolutely loved what I was doing, was finally happy that I went to law school, loved my career. And then once I had about 4 or 5 years of experience under my belt in that field, finally felt ready to take the next step and open my own firm.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
That's got
How
us
long have you? How long?
15, and that got us here.
So 7, or about to celebrate, or are you in your 8th now already?
I'm in my 8th year. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
In my 8th year in my own firm.
Hey, listen, anybody that makes it after the first 3, to me, here's what I have learned, and I do have under my belt a few companies that I've started and sold, and I am 50. But what I have found is if you make it past 3 years, it's really where you're going. It's up to you at that point. You really have the right to decide if the company is going to continue, if you're going to sell it, are you going to blow it up? Where do you want the company to go after those first 3 years? So at least that's been my experience. So it's when I see people make it, who are in their 7th and 8th, then I know that their success really is within their hands at this point. They determine everything. Yeah. I mean, we always determine our success, and I don't want to take away from that either, because I believe that. But a business, and a lot of people don't look at this, but a business is no different than a child. It's why they literally get the same number of digits, just separated different, than a social security number, because you give birth to a new entity.
Right.
And the reality is at 3 years old, they are an adult and they now fly on their own. And you do have control over, but really all your control is in that first 3 years of how well the company is going to flourish and be an adult, if you will. So that's how I look at it. But at nearly 8, you're closing in on almost being a grandparents now.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because I mean, one of the things I did have, I think one of the biggest pitfalls, or one of the biggest mistakes I probably made in those 8 years.
Please. It's not a mistake, by the way. I don't believe in those.
One of the biggest learning experiences.
It's a challenge.
Yes. One of the biggest challenges I had to overcome, and one of my biggest learning experiences, was I did join with a partner for about a year and a half in there.
Yep. That can be either a home run or a strikeout.
From late 2017 until about mid 2019. And I knew about 3 months in, it was not the choice I should have made. That's
unfortunate, because that's already far enough into where you kind of have to see a certain amount of it, which is probably why it took 2 years to see it through.
Yeah, I knew that it was a choice I regretted almost immediately.
Just out of curiosity, just because I see a lot of did you take on another male or another female?
Another female. And, I think it was, I think I didn't, and I think it was intentionally presented to me that our visions about business aligned until we were partners.
Yeah. I've been there. You everything's go, go, go. And then when you actually get on board, you're like, wait a minute.
Once we were partners, all of a sudden, all the things that were presented to me about our common visions for our business were suddenly different. And they were things that were not only just different, but I was quite frankly very opposed to.
Right, like rudimentarily, or I should say,
things that I'm just
moral level.
Passionately morally opposed to as a business owner.
Right.
So I kind of I consider 2019 was kind of a rebirth, a relaunch, but even that, I love it because it was a huge opportunity for me. Because in 2015, it was my first launch. And I feel like there were things I did in my first launch where from 2015 to 2017, I was like, okay, if I ever do this again, this is what I'm going to do a little differently.
And you got to do it.
This again, this is what I'm going to do. You know, things like an easier to spell website.
Right.
You know,
make your branding very,
right.
you know, people have no idea how important the concept of branding, and that's not sales. Like everybody always wants to wrap up branding, advertising, marketing, and sales as all, they're all separate components of you bringing in a new partner, client, whatever you want to call them.
Right. Even just the opportunity to take a second bite at the apple with my branding in 2019.
I was
excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to fix the mistakes, you know.
Exactly.
And again, I truly, you know, so I'm Native American. I got Cherokee Blackfoot. And one of the things that the Native American, as far as I know, all the tribes, they embrace mistakes. They, in fact, if they do a project, for instance, they're sure to include a mistake because perfection is unobtainable as a human, right? So part of their perfection, if you will, and what I share the same view with the same blood and all that, is that, you know, the perfection lies in the imperfection, right? And all of those things that you did, I love talking to folks like you, because all I'm hearing is everything that you did led you up to being the person that you are now, to the place you are now, to happiness. Like I tell people, you know, true happiness has nothing to do with how much money you make. I've made a lot of money and it did not change my happiness level at all. Happiness only came when I was finally happy with me. And then, you know, it shines out. And you can see that in other people when they're happy.
Well, exactly. And that's, you know,
I bet she wasn't happy. I don't know her, but I bet part of what was going on was she's not.
Yes. I would definitely venture that she's not
could be happier.
Be happier. Yeah. I would say that I think she could be happier. And really for me, I think that was, you know, the main differentiation. People say to me all the time, you know, oh, don't you want to grow? Don't you want more locations? Don't you want employees?
It's all about growth. Yeah.
Growth.
It's 2022 now. Come on, Gina.
Right. I don't, you know what? No, I don't think there's anything wrong with staying exactly as I am. Because to me, growth and managing employees and managing staff and managing various locations, that's not what's going to make me happy.
That came from your background, I believe. And what I mean by that is you came from a different class of people that understand that being a small business owner is fine. I don't want to necessarily, like, I know this is the day and age of billionaires and soon to be trillionaires. And I get that, you know, we all grew up playing Monopoly knowing that we could get just more zeros. Right. But for some of us, and for a lot of us, I'm starting to find out, like when you really obtain true happiness, you realize that I don't need everything in the world and I don't need enough money to afford everything in the world. You can really see who's not happy too. When I won't name any names, but when you see a company move to another state so that they save 2% on taxes, you're like,
yeah,
you know, like, okay,
yes, yeah. And you know what? And to me, it's part of the reason, especially as an attorney, that I opened my own firm. First of all, I wanted to be able to perform my career in a way that makes me happy.
Right.
And I wanted to be able to help my clients in a way that makes me happy.
Which means your way.
My way. So part of it is being able to serve my clients in a way that makes me happy, help people in a way that makes me happy. Obviously, we all work because we need money. We like nice things. We want to have a home. We want to be able to
give our kids and family things.
Buy things that make us happy, do things that make us happy. But at the same time, it's free time also has value. The ability,
more than people give it credit for these days.
Right, exactly. So for me, the balance between there's a happy space where there's the balance between the size of my firm and then the free time I have.
And let me throw this in. It's the size of your firm, which equates to how much time do you have to put into it for it to run smoothly and not delegate anymore or wear new hats.
Exactly. Exactly. So if I like to keep the ratio in balance where I'm spending just enough time nurturing my firm, where it's continuing to generate happiness for me, but I still have enough free time where my personal life is also generating happiness.
Do you have a family?
I am not married. I don't have children. But I have three beautiful nieces, and two of them live in Ohio.
Gotcha.
So for me, it's very important to
Have time for them.
also be there for everything for my nieces in Ohio. So,
Well, and if you ever do end up, I would have ventured to say that a family is probably not opposed. They're not opposed to that idea.
yeah,
And when that happens, you will have already created the time frame and the space so that you can start a family and
exactly.
marry somebody, have kids, and
Exactly.
the whole kit and caboodle.
Exactly. So, so for me, it's definitely, I work very hard and I enjoy that. But when it's time to enjoy not working, you have to know how to do that too.
Play hard, or
Exactly.
work hard, play hard. And let me say this, I give you kudos, because a lot of folks don't, how do I say this? Because I know I'm probably going to sound pompous and I don't mean to, but there's a lot of growing up that we do once we have kids, and it just can't happen until you are a parent. There's just nothing. I used to not understand it. Now I'm seeing that there's a second and third fold possibility. If I become a grandparent or even a great grandparent, then, it's a new level each time. Right.
Right.
The thing that I find interesting is that not a lot of young folks who don't have kids have seen the value of their free time. They are willing to put everything all day and night, through the weekends. And one of the things that I find even enjoyable with my company now, I am a salesman, so I've been doing this for years. And I know that if I have a connection with someone, I'll give them that weekend or that nighttime call because I'm trying to close the deal. But I always set the precedent and set the expectation that the team is 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They're not going to answer emails at night, unless you have an absolute emergency that your site is down. We're out of the loop. We monitor, for those occasions. But I love that, and it sounds like you've pretty much put that in place to you, where, it's like my phone is my work phone, and that's the phone I answer, and I turn this one off, and then it changes when I go home.
I'm very much the same way, and it's I set very much the same boundaries with my clients. And
you have to, or else the expectation
you absolutely have to. But
comes out of
very
hand.
much the same way. Like I have clients I've been working with since I opened in 2015. I feel like they're that saying, a client will become a friend faster than a friend will become a client.
Absolutely.
I have clients I consider friends at this point.
I break that rule, by the way. They say in sales, don't befriend your the person you're trying to sell. I'm like, I don't believe that rule at all. I'm like, people will buy from their friend quicker.
Well,
they might not work for them, but they'll buy from them a lot quicker.
Well, and I think with an attorney as well.
Oh yeah, that's a special relationship,
interpersonal relationship and trust that you just build a friendship over. Have you
heard the acronym FMFL?
No.
Or, I'm sorry, MYML.
No.
Oh my goodness. Google came up with that acronym to describe you, your entire industry as well as, and you'll get it, but it's called My Money, My Life. Or no, Your Money, Your Life. That's why it's Your Money, Your Life. Why? Your Money, YMYL. I don't know where the F came from.
Yeah.
Your Money, Your Life, because doctors, attorneys, accountants, most of the professional white collar folks have a huge effect on your money and your life if you're dealing with one, whether it's your doctor, your attorney, gosh forbid your CPA or your securities agent, right?
Right.
But I mean, they really, it's funny that they came up with an acronym, based on just that, because there is white collar, but then there's white collar who are YMYL, who literally, have a huge, not just effect, but can have a tremendous effect on your future too.
Yeah. Well, and but I've really gotten to that point with most people where if you really truly need me an off hours, I'll make that time for you.
Yeah, that's different. But that's no different than the emergency moment.
But it's at the point now where if I see the phone ringing and I see it's one of my clients and it's an evening or a weekend, I know it's an emergency.
because you've set those boundaries
know it's
already.
an
They
emergency.
won't even buy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it was a new
That
client, I
phone
bet you would
won't
let that phone ring.
Yeah, that phone will not even be ringing unless it's
Right.
an emergency. And I trust them that there's a trust between us.
That's awesome.
It's an emergency, and I pick up, because I know them, I trust them all. There's that level of trust that, they know I'm always there for them. They don't have to panic that they're not going to be able to get me.
Right.
So they don't have
If
to
they haven't
feel
already.
that compulsion to try to reach me whenever they can, so if I see that phone ringing at night or on a weekend, which is very rare, I know it's an emergency.
No,
And if
I
I'm
like
available, I pick up.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So when you could not find a mentor within the family,
Mhm.
who'd you end up finding over the years that you would say is a mentor? And what would you say is if it's more than one piece of advice, that's fine. But what would you say was their greatest piece of advice for you?
I think probably there have been several over the years, but I think I'm going to focus on the people I consider my mentors now.
Okay, perfect.
And the people I consider my mentors now are really the peers that I work with who have more years of experience than I do.
Simply put, just more experience so you can.
Yeah, because it's first, and I think I want to focus on that for a couple of reasons. Because first of all, one of the ways I've always built my practice, and again, I get a lot of criticism about this from people, but I believe I practice with kindness.
Right.
I'm an attorney who I treat my colleagues with kindness first. I'm always polite and
You were polite with me when you had to reschedule.
Right.
Every
You're a
email between us was.
You're a paralegal, you're a secretary. I don't care. I'm going to be polite.
You're a human.
To you. You know what? We're going to work together. We all have the same goal. We need to help our clients. We're going to get through this together. Even when I'm very aggressively advocating for my clients, there is a polite way to do it, and there's a horrible, disgusting way to do it. Okay?
And 100 ways in between.
I believe in practicing with kindness. All right.
Yes.
Because if I don't do that, I can't live with myself. And I've found over the years that has served me so much better. I now have an entire group of colleagues who I can call on for anything.
They probably adore you.
Yeah, I mean, I can call on for anything. I have colleagues who I work with all the time, but, maybe they have 10, 20, or even 30 years more experience than I do. For example, I had a very complicated commercial real estate transaction, and any attorney who tells you that they've done it all and seen it all is lying.
Right.
Okay? And something very strange I had never seen before. Okay. So I called my colleague, who I absolutely adore, who has about 30 years more experience than I do. He and I had just finished up a transaction. I adore him. I adore his paralegal has 30 years more experience than I do. And I emailed both of them, actually. And I said, who has a few minutes for me to pick your brain?
Yeah.
And I told them the problem. I said, have either of you seen this before? And both of them responded to me with some advice. And it's just that kind of a thing.
No, that's.
You can't practice isolated.
No.
And I think that really practicing with kindness has been the biggest service to me.
I truly believe in the adage of. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, not even that, just to my mental health, but also to my practice. I truly believe it's the reason that my practice grows and thrives.
Kill them with kindness has always been a. It doesn't matter how that other person talks to you either. That just means it might not be a good fit, by the way. And I'm sure you've learned that along your avenues as well. When you say, hey, I like you and I get that you need some help, but you're probably going to find better help from this attorney or something like that. But
right.
What I will say is that if you're always being kind, and it's something I didn't get, and I'll just reflect for a moment. I have come of age over the years, and the 25-year-old me 25 years ago was not spouting the same things that I am saying today. So it's number one, nice to see it in someone younger. because it took me 46 years to really turn into the king of kindness. But I love myself so much more because I know at the end of the day, I didn't say anything mean. I didn't say anything nasty. I didn't go out of my way to hurt somebody. I didn't react with animosity, which is just as guilty as being the jerk in the beginning. If I'm a jerk to you, it takes two to fight, right? It's only a fight and nasty if you come back and, yell, scream at me. So I truly have taken on that notion of killing with kindness. And I find that I sleep better at night, regardless of what people think of me, which is nice, by the way. That is a nice, because it's more for me. And I know that may sound selfish, but I have found that if I love myself, take care of myself, then all the other people in my life are going to be taken care of. And I can actually give them good love, right? I can truly care about them because I care about myself. So yeah, the killing with kindness, the last note I'll make on that is that I learned to finally do that to myself as well. And that's when you're really, kind to yourself, kind to everybody else.
Right. Well, and then I try because I was not treated that way as a young attorney.
Right.
So I try to be very conscious of treating young attorneys that way.
And you started out under, like, I know you got this one, but obviously that was part of what you were saying was it 5 years that you spent under the wing of somebody? Was that?
Well, I was working for other people probably my first 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So. And the first 4 or 5 of those 8 years were for not very nice people in not very nice fields. So that's an entirely other podcast that could take.
Oh yeah, no, I will say this. A
traumatic trigger warning podcast.
No, I get it. PTSD, right?
Yeah, I try now to kind of, and I had people at that point in time who showed me so much kindness that now I still think about them, and I wish I'm sure
they were a light at that time.
I wish I remembered their names.
Oh,
because now I would go back and find them and say, thank you. So like, you have no idea what this little bit of kindness meant to me when I was in this dark place. But I don't even remember their names. So what I try to do to thank them is pay it forward now. And, when I come across when I come across that young attorney who seems flustered or stressed out, or like they're in a bad employment situation, I try to be that light for them.
That's awesome.
Listen, I know we're on opposite sides here, but you can ask me questions. I'm not going to hold it against you.
We're both attorneys that are trying to do the right thing.
Right. We're both human. We're both professionals. Please don't feel embarrassed to ask me a question. I'm going to help you, and I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to whip it out later and use it as a weapon against you. You can ask me for help. It's okay. I've been in your shoes. And I've come across people who've been very grateful for it, and that also makes me feel very, very good.
That's you can't. It's what I keep trying to tell people. Like the place that I've come, you can't buy this happiness. Yeah. And I used to. What's really funny is when you're not happy, and I'll just throw this out there: when you're on the other side of it, and you don't have that kindness in your heart and that happiness, right? And you're the Scrooge, if you will, then everybody appears to be like you, because whatever you are is what you see in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't think a lot of people were happy when I was unhappy. I thought most people, in fact, I used to say, I don't know anybody who's happy. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm in this place, by no coincidence, because I don't believe in them, FR, I don't know if you know that acronym, EHFAR, everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. But I absolutely, now I just continue to see happy, kind people, and it's because that's who I've become. So that's now A, what I'm attracting, and B, what I see now in the world. What used to be a very dark, pessimistic world to me has become an extremely beautiful place. I think you see the same kind of thing.
Definitely. Absolutely.
It makes a difference. It really does. And again, I mean it. I'm just glad you didn't have to go through the number of years. Because if you think you went into a dark place, I was very, very dark. I had a 10-year period from like basically 16 to 26 that was horribly dark. And I won't get into all that, but I also believe in this. I don't have any regrets to that. And I mean that. I say it's nice to see it. I got here, and that's all that matters. That's what this life is about, is to get here and then try to spread it. That's where I've come.
Well, I'm very lucky because I had an incredibly supportive family.
Right.
I had wonderfully supportive parents. When I was in that place where it was, all I dreamed about was going to law school and being a lawyer, and then I got there and I was miserable.
Right.
And all I wanted to do was
even to saying, no, I don't want to do this.
I at least I had parents that I could express that to.
Right.
And they were the type of people that would say, okay, how are you going to fix it? How are you
They
going
didn't
to
shun you for it.
Right. And P.S. there's always a room for you at our house.
Right.
If you are worried about your finances while you're fixing it.
You can always come back home.
Right. I still have a bed at my mother's house.
I have the same, funny enough, I have the same two parents, except they're older now. So one now lives with me and has for 20 years. And the other one's, funny enough, visiting right now. But if I ever needed to, it wasn't that long ago. I had to, I mean, they're always there. And that is
my parents had no one. So they changed the pattern with their children.
That's awesome.
So it's thank God I had them, because if I didn't at least know that I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head and food on my table when I wanted to change my life,
right, I
don't know if I would have been brave enough to do it.
Exactly. It is nice to have a bit of a safety net, if you will.
Exactly. So I knew that I had a place to sleep and I would have food to eat, even if I had no job and I was paying tuition to go back for something else and change my life. So I was very, very, and I appreciate how fortunate I was in having that opportunity, because a lot of people don't have it.
No, in fact, I would venture to say that it's probably half and half. I think today you probably have as many great parents as you do. Maybe I would like to think there's even more better, that ultimately there's a higher number of better parents than just because of the education of it and of parenthood and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
Talking about parents, let me ask you, where when you grew up, what was it like? Where did you grow up? Number one, was it the same place that you are now? Number one, and what was it like when you were growing up?
Well, I did end up moving back to the town I grew up in. Did go other places.
Right. Went out and saw some of the world, but then came back home.
Yeah, but then ultimately came back. And growing up, I mean, I had, a very typical suburban childhood,
Gotcha.
Very typical suburban Northern New Jersey childhood.
Riding on bicycles.
Yeah. I mean, we live about 20 minutes outside of New York City. So I feel like I really got the best of both worlds,
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest cities in the world was right in my backyard. And my parents were city kids. My parents grew up in Brooklyn. So there was no fear of the city. We were in the city all the time, grew up in the city. So I had all of those opportunities at my fingertips, but at the same time had, the safety and the comfort and all of the luxuries that come along with growing up in the stuff, like you said, riding my bicycle and stuff like that, that come along with growing up in the suburbs. So, I was very lucky, wonderful public schools that I had the opportunity to go to. Ended up going upstate New York for college.
Cool.
Still absolutely love upstate New York. Beautiful, beautiful place. Did end up coming back to New Jersey for law school. And lived a few different places around the state. And then ultimately, after I moved back home, when I was making that transition, when it was finally time for me to get my own place again, decided to stick around. And, all my friends were here again, all of my...
Well, yeah, you already had your roots.
Yeah, my roots and my branches were here now. So I decided, hey, might as well stick around.
Oh, I was going to say, so my wife is probably, I can't never remember, but she was pretty grew up close to Middlesex, right across the bridge as well. I believe, whatever part of Jersey that is. Anyway, it's funny because, she shared a lot where she was in a pretty standard suburban area, but at the same time, literally the city was, I mean, put it this way, from her home, she could easily see the towers when they were standing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how close they were. So,
Yeah.
that's cool. Just out of curiosity, I think you kind of touched on this, but was it always, like, from childhood, early childhood, was that always an aspiration to become an attorney?
I think it was definitely, I always liked
The
that
idea?
kind of thing.
Oh,
I don't know if it was necessarily like I identified it as I want to be an attorney, but
right.
I always liked that. I always liked that kind of thing, like something in business or corporations or running a business or having a business. And then as I went through school and I started to study, history and the law, and that's really where I started to get very interested.
Right.
So it just kind of naturally flowed that, okay, like when I was in college and I knew I wanted to continue my education. All right, well, business and the law are two things I'm very interested in. If I continue my education in the law, I can still do business or the law.
Right.
If I just go into business, I can just kind of do business. So that's ultimately why I decided, okay, let's go to law school, because I'm still going to have more options with the law degree than with a business degree. And it's exactly like you said, there were a lot of bumps in the road. There were a lot of twists and turns, but quite frankly, I don't think I'd be here without those.
No way.
And
I don't believe that.
I think if I had gotten a job I loved right out of law school, I'd be sitting somewhere behind a desk as a partner, and I'd think I was happy, but I wouldn't really be happy.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I never would have gotten here without those bumps in the road, and I'm grateful for everyone.
I can truly say that I would not play the tape of my life one bit different, because I wouldn't be who I am right now. And the only way I would possibly do that is if you could somehow show me, had I taken a turn earlier, that I would have gotten here 20 years earlier. Maybe I might consider it, but you gotta have some hardcore proof. Like, you got to show me that reel and make sure, so, just out of curiosity. So was there ever anything else that you wanted to be other than an attorney? Was there anything that you kind of a dream thing?
I think it's, and this is funny because I was talking to friends the other night and I was saying to them, sometimes I think I enjoy the owning my own business part more than the practicing law part. Right. So I think if
being the boss.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's just being a business owner.
No,
I think if I ended up being a business owner, like, I don't really know that the type of business is really relevant. I think I just really enjoy having a business, being how that makes you part of the community.
Oh yeah, you're giving something. You're contributing.
Yeah, I enjoy how having my business in my community makes me a part of my community, brings me into the community, allows me to do things and help in the community. So I truly think that even if I were not an attorney, I would have ended up in something in the business field, and I probably would be a small business owner,
running a business of some kind,
doing something in the community like this.
That's cool. What's the craziest thing that you've ever done?
The craziest thing that I've ever done
that you're okay with sharing on videotape.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not super crazy. I'm in my personal life. I mean, probably the craziest thing people learn about me in my personal life is that I have a motorcycle.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's a little crazy.
What kind of bike?
It's actually a trike. It's a Harley Sportster.
Nice.
That's triked out. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too super wild and crazy in my personal life.
Except that you're a Harley girl.
Except that I'm a Harley girl, right? Yeah.
So not super crazy, but
not super crazy.
Just a little bit of crazy in there on the weekend. A little weekend warrior, I'm here.
But I have to say, probably the craziest thing I ever did was just quit my job.
Right, just quit.
Happy.
Did you do a Jerry Maguire? Like, just this is it, I'm out, and just
I
throw it to the wind.
Quit my job. I'm going back to school. Goodbye. I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So here's our last few. These are just kind of the fun ones. What's your favorite podcast?
Oh my goodness, my favorite podcast. Uh, that's a tough one. Right now I'm actually very into I have to be honest, I don't even know the names of a lot of the podcasts I listen to
Right.
because my
You just
sister
have it
sends them to me. But right now I'm into a lot of health and nutrition podcasts because
Which makes sense with your specialty.
yeah, so I'm listening to a lot of health and nutrition podcasts. I like I honestly like a lot of educational podcasts. But I also really like podcasts like this that are relevant to my field. So I also follow a lot of podcasts.
So you really actually listen to quite a few different podcasts throughout the week.
Yeah. So I don't I actually find them hard to keep up with. But
well, it sounds like while you're listening to one, you'll see a so like, you know what? I think I want to
that's
just.
kind of what I do. It's like while I'm watching one, like the other one will pop up in recommendations, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
So I really don't know the names of what I'm watching. I'm more that person where it's like, "You may like this," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I may." And then I
have become that person. Spotify has spoiled me. I used to know the name of every artist and every song on every album, and I could tell you all about them. Now they're like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "I don't know," but I've been listening to this for like 3 years now, and it's one of my favorite songs. So
yeah,
I can't tell you who did.
So for me, it's mostly like educational podcasts,
right?
And then also just like interview podcasts,
Industry.
like human stories like this.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Favorite conference? Do you have one of those?
Oh my goodness.
Is it business or is it attorney? I'm curious. I have a feeling you're probably more into a business.
I am more into the business. I am more into the business conferences, and it's not a favorite actual conference. But I go to two different kinds of conferences. I go to the conferences where I attend as an attendee, and then I go to conferences where I'm working.
Where you have the
I prefer the ones where I'm working.
Yeah, you know, I have done both. I'm sure you can imagine, and I would much rather. I don't really do them as much as I used to, but I would much rather be the booth than the attendee. I don't know. It felt weird when you were an attendee. It always felt weird to me when I went to a conference. I felt like I had to do certain things, but as a booth, the only thing I had to do was talk to everybody that walked in front of my booth. You know,
exactly. I just find that it's so much more engaging.
Easier. Yeah.
And then usually I also happen to manage to book a speaking gig when I'm there working.
Right.
So I just find them to be a lot more engaging when I'm there working than when I'm there attending. So I like when I'm at conferences working a lot more.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Last two. So first, rather than a mentor, let me ask you, is there any piece of advice what's the one piece of advice that you would give to any fledgling attorney, regardless of their practice?
I think that probably the biggest mistake young attorneys make, and the reason that they are fledgling, as you say, is because they're trying to be someone they're not. They think they have to be someone they're not to be successful.
Right.
So the biggest piece of advice I'd give them is, if you feel like you have to be someone you're not, you are in the wrong place.
You're not doing it the right way.
Right. You are in the wrong. If you feel like you have to change who you are to be successful,
definitely. Yes. If you have to change who you are, then you are definitely
in the wrong place. Keep looking for your place. I promise you it's out there.
Yeah. You'll find it.
Yep.
Last one. Favorite tool and or software? It might be, software that is your favorite tool, but what's the thing that you rely on most?
For
the job?
Definitely Clio, which I use for my practice management.
I've heard that quite a few times now.
And the really funny part is I've been using Clio for years now, and I'm just starting to learn
how to be a master
of what it can do. Yeah. Like I'm just starting to learn, because I started using it and then I just got so busy so fast that I didn't have time to learn.
Extremely powerful.
Right. So I'm just starting to learn some of the things that can automate for me and save me time.
Yep.
But anything that can automate something for me.
Isn't automation a beautiful thing?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Because I don't have staff. I don't have secretaries. I don't have paralegals. I mean, I have a remote paralegal who's a contract service. I have remote receptionists who are contract service. I do not want to have to unlock an office door to make sure other people are coming to work.
Right.
That
I
is
love
not
that,
my
by the way.
vision. Yeah, so it's any computer program that can do something for me that in a typical office, like someone would be having a secretary do. Love it. Give it to me.
But Clio is definitely the number one right now. Biggest
Yeah,
time saver and biggest
it
help
is.
one. Yeah.
It's been great.
Well, Gina, I loved having you on. Loved the conversation. It was exactly what you said. It would be a good conversation. Maybe you can come back and see us again in a year or so.
I'd love to.
Continued good fortune, and I don't think it's by any mistake from talking to you. So just continue doing what you're doing. Continue being you. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and speak with you, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Hey, have a wonderful week. Have a even better weekend, and stay blessed.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.